Friends, thank you so much for joining us for another episode of the Minds of Mortgage podcast. This is Kelly Yale, and today I am absolutely so excited to introduce you. If you don't happen to know her already, this is Mo Gatling. She is the Senior Vice President of Strategic Growth and Expansion at New American Funding. I happened to meet her at Housing Wire, where she was unbelievable on stage, and I'm just so excited to be able to have her on the podcast today. Mo, thank you so much for taking some time with us today.
Thank you for having me. Super excited to be on. When we connected last April, we said we would be getting together, and here we are in the new year. So thank you.
I love it. We were intentional and we actually did it. So I love it. Listen, I know that you started your career back with Bank of America back in 2005. What made you decide on mortgage for your job?
I had worked in banking and credit cards for like ever and had bought my own home and realized that when I bought my home, there were some things missing in that process. And I thought, um, if you know me, you know what I'm about to say. If I can show you better than I can tell you. So what I had to go do is go hop on the mortgage side and really be able to maybe see if I can improve that process for other people that and fill in those gaps that were lacking, right? So true to form, I'm still the same way, but that's how I got started in the business.
I love it. You're in the Las Vegas market. Have you been in that market for a long time?
Ooh, I have now about 18 years, 19 years. I've lived here before, came here because my spouse was in the military. Now he's a veteran and still works in the market and associated with the military. So we decided to stay right here.
How has that market changed? Because I mean, it's dramatic, I'm sure.
Crazy, especially in the last 5 years, if we want to be honest. Home prices are probably about $100,000 than they more than they were in 2020, right? I know Vegas is known for the glitz and the glamour and things like that, but we are a town of working people. Our casino
Hmm.
industry here has a ton of people that are, work in the culinary arts and manage the hotels and construction and things like that. So it's really evolved to make it somewhere that I can kind of dive in and problem solve for my own market. A lot of the same problems a lot of people are facing with affordability, and just being able to get into a home to start with. Plus, it's a huge melting pot here in Las Vegas. So it keeps me grounded in what I love to do, but to really be able to help people by still touching mortgages every day and seeing what those problems are real time.
I'm probably going to get in trouble when I start the sentence this way, but I have to tell you that I really admire someone who's in leadership who still produces loans, because I have long since felt that when you have non-producing leadership, there's myriad things that go on in the market, that go on with human beings, that you just have so much more insight on when you are still sort of in the game. Why was that important to you?
Get the word from the people. And I didn't want to
Yeah.
get it secondhand by asking someone, how did that work for you? Or simply being able to read off stats for home ownership. It makes me even more clear about who is buying homes right now, what problems that they face, be able to come up with real solutions and be of value to conversations about how to solve for those problems. I'm not just getting it because the stats came out from HMDA and other people's applications, and I'm making references hoping somebody else took the right information and put it into a 1003. I have a great sampling of mortgages that I do personally. I still talk to customers. I don't cherry pick on that. And I help people and the people that work for me really find the solutions. And it's invaluable to be able to do my job and make sure that I'm doing it the way that I need to.
A lot of people in this industry are very, we market it, right? And not saying that it's not true, but we say a lot of the times this is how many families I've served or how many people that I've helped. And that's kind of our running calculator instead of I closed, X amount of dollars in loans. But when you actually see the impact that rates or experience have on the customer, right? It's a pretty big deal. And I think that is such an important bridge for the people who are making decisions, all the way down to like really understanding the struggles that buyers are going through. And what do you think of that? And what do you see right now as the major conversation you've been having with your home buyers who are hoping to get into a house?
Since we're being real here, look, it is rough. Affordability has become rough. I get to hear the angst, the complaints, the anxiousness of homeowners over how to be able to afford it, and the balance between being qualified for something and wanting to frankly pay it so they have life balance. The fact that I have to tell people like, hey, I know we all live here in town. Again, being here is huge for me, and being able to touch and feel the things that go on, and the fact that I have children that I need to help, in the same arena, that are working people, my children, that need to get out and be able to have a house. And it's not just what I can help them get into, it's them being able to sustain it and be able to pay it and keep it for the long haul. Having to tell people like, hey, your best bet to get a house is to marry yourself off, or find that person, that family member that might be willing to go on the house with you. And getting to that without saying that necessarily directly, and watching their demeanor change and trying to help walk them through what that might look like. It's helped me realize, as leaders in the industry, there are things that we could do that are different to help people get into homes. And it's not just the co-signer. It's not just the down payment assistance. There are other things that we could do. And I think it's really helped me be able to be super clear about housing plans and who to talk to, and I wrote a 5-point plan for evolving what fair housing and opportunity for housing looks like at the ground level, because I actually talk to people and I get more of an idea of things that are outside of the application. That means if you don't do loans, you don't have this aspect of what somebody in 2025 feels, what they're doing with their money, right? That we can't see on paper in that application. What do they do? What's making them not want to really purchase? Is it that it's not just affordable? I have plenty of people I qualify that also don't buy because they don't want the payment, but I get to talk to them about what they prefer to pay instead of that mortgage.
Right.
And yeah, and kind of take that forward into the quest to find that happy medium and what will solve affordable housing. Because to the consumer right now, affordable housing is not in the price. To them, what makes it affordable is going to be that monthly payment. So we went from a price-driven society in real estate to a payment-driven society, because that's all that they care about. They don't, I mean, there could be $100,000 difference in the house, but if you can find a way to make the payment the same, yes, they'll buy the house that costs more, right? So it's just kind of those things, and really realizing the family dynamic, the financial dynamic behind the decision making of that consumer that we need to troubleshoot for.
It's so interesting that you say that because, we draw parallels sometimes, right, for housing and also like buying cars, right? And yet a couple of years ago, you saw that conversation shift in automobile sales to what do you want your monthly payment to be? And that became sort of this very strange thing that I noticed was what they were pushing more so than let's negotiate the price of the car. And now it seems like that has also trickled very heavily into the way we talk about mortgages. Are you seeing the same thing?
Absolutely. It is. I ask people before they do an application, before we get into kind of diving into you getting qualified, I want to know what your happy place would be on the mortgage. Like, what payment would
Right.
where are we going to get that you're going to get super duper uncomfortable? I want to know up front, because then we can have some of these real conversations. up front. I also have found the mindset of the home buyer now, especially first time buyers, because of the increase in rates in housing that has made the payments what they are. I think that a first time buyer's age is more mature now. And maybe it's not because of, we can't, let's not be fancy. Let's just say it is what it is. At 25, what are you making? Right? Compared to what are you making at the
Right.
average home buying age in the United States of 36. But that mindset of that home buyer, they also are less apt to maybe buy what we used to frame as a starter home because they're closer to 40. The likelihood that
Right.
they might be able to buy 2 or 3 more houses in their lifetime when you're almost 40 isn't as realistic as when we used to. Well, and I say used to, like I'm an old lady in mortgage, right? But used to is 5 years ago, and tell them like, just get out of renting, just get a house. You don't keep it. It doesn't matter what neighborhood it's in because you can always upgrade that. Well, the 36-year-old, that's our average age of the first time buyer, is very concerned about that neighborhood because they're like kids, right? They're having children. They might already have the children. It's a totally different conversation that you have to have. And not just conversation, I think that we've talked about in the past, it's a different way to market these people too, because you can't
Right.
market the ugly house in this neighborhood that might be up and coming in 7 years. If that person's 36 years old, that 7 years feels real different and impacts them on a mental standpoint, way different than we used to package what we used to do 5 and 6 years ago.
See, I love the way that you understand these people. I think that there is such a gap between sales and really understanding the people. And I've noticed that since I got in the industry, but it's always sort of fallen into a different lane, right? And to your point, marketing so drastically changes every 5 years in this industry that, what we were saying back in 2020 certainly is not what we're saying today, right? And if we're not ahead of those conversations, if we don't understand the buyer psychology, then we can't have impactful conversations, and we certainly can't help people if we don't know what they're scared of. If we're too afraid, or our scarcity mindset makes us want every loan so much that we aren't maybe being looking at the whole picture for a human being, right? Because living in a house comfortably, very, very different than being able to afford a house.
Absolutely.
And I don't know if we, I don't think, but to your point, we have this idea that, if it's a first time home buyer, we can put them in this little package, and what we'll show them is like a happy couple on the front porch who are like 22, and maybe she's pregnant in one of the pictures and doing a little painting of a nursery, and it's like, wait a second, that is
That's
not
not
your
who we're
average
talking
first
to
time
anymore.
buyer. Exactly.
Not who we're
And
talking
so,
to.
I mean,
It's not.
when you see that kind of marketing, is it challenging for you because of the way that you spend your time talking to people?
It's been super useful in finding out ways myself personally and the company can maybe shift in the way that we're just connecting with people. Like I said, it's not the way it used to be. I'm all for like, let's market to the cat ladies, right? Because if the average age is 36, some people have either had kids or they made a conscious decision, I'm buying and I'm going to have them. Or maybe they've made a conscious decision at that point because it's definitely socially acceptable. People care far less about going to Thanksgiving and being asked when you're going to have kids. They're okay saying, I'm not. So we have to encompass all of that in the marketing to be able to connect with actual people. So your marketing should have a woman with a dog or a cat or a man with a cat or, because they don't necessarily want kids. We can't go baby talk a 36-year-old about buying a house. They also,
Ex-
I'm going to be very challenging here because I'm all about leveraging down payment assistance, but now down payment assistance has become more of a leverage tool versus you
Mhm.
need assistance, right? Because they're 36 years old. I think that at 36, I've heard comments that from buyers that have seen home builders that are advertising zero down. They're concerned more about who their neighbors are because they're not prepared and what the neighborhood might be like long term. If they're saying, come out here and get in out of pocket, they're wondering, is this a good neighborhood now? Because they're 36 years old. So again, the
Right.
marketing is really leaning on, we can see the change and who hasn't adapted. And if you haven't, maybe reframed down payment programs as a way to leverage somebody else's money or leveraging the tools available for housing. I always tell people I've helped people that are professional athletes, and the first thing they ask me is there any programs that I could get coming here to Vegas and buying? They didn't ask me for down payment assistance. They have multi-million dollar contracts for work, but everybody wants a great deal and to be able to take advantage of everything. So that's just kind of one instance where the mindset behind a down payment, the word assistance, or even when you say affordable housing, sometimes they question, does affordability equal a good neighborhood as well? So you really have to be mindful of
Sure.
what you're saying and how you're framing it and who your intended audience truly is, being sure to take into account how they may receive that. And do they see themselves in what you're putting out there in order to be able to buy your product? Because at the end of the day, we are selling a product in mortgage, in real estate, and we have not been maybe as aggressive as people that out in the private sector and retail and things like that, of really nailing who we're talking to and what outcome or output that we want from the conversations that we're starting or the flyers that we have. I always tell people about moving boxes. I assure you, people don't think moving boxes are sexy. They think it's even less sexy when the family holding the moving boxes has perfectly coiffed hair and there's not like living room written on the side of these boxes that typically have a Home Depot or something plastered on the side of the box, because that's where we would get boxes these days. They're not connecting with that. And they often might get cynical over the fact that you think that somebody has this perfect hair, right? They're done up like us, that they got dressed and went to work to move, when normally it should be this messy bun at the top of the head, right? And everybody's got on mismatched clothes, whatever clothes you could throw on because you know you were getting dirty, right? They laugh at us
Oh, yeah.
is what the consumer does, because they're like, that's not what moving looks like. I remember my moving day and that wasn't it, right? So we're portraying
Right.
these things
Yeah.
that don't connect.
Well, the reality of like I used to encourage the loan officers in my region to take like closing pictures, right? And that was always the argument that the people at the table always had, like, I don't want to take this picture. Look at me, I'm a disaster. We're moving today, and I'm like, exactly. That's the authenticity of the picture, right? And I understood always the argument against, but there's really something to be said for that. You did take these people through this incredible journey to get to these keys being in their hand, and their whole life starts today, and that's it's going to start in an old fraternity t-shirt with a bunch of their friends, probably, helping them out, their families over there. That, not everyone's going to hire a $10,000 moving company and, smile as these boxes are loaded in. That's just not the reality of people's lives.
It isn't. It isn't. But it's part of us being connective to what's going on. It might, and I think that proof based selling is like amazing in what people respect now. They're showing up for reality TV, right? So if you talk about your journey, it might be like, 56 emails, right? Uh,
Right.
62 conversations. It might be, I don't know, a pack of Coronas and, 62 hamburger patties is how you got in your house, because that's what moving day looked like, because treated your friends to a barbecue when they came over to get it done. But that's
Right.
authentic, and people would see that and be like, oh my God, that's what moving looks like. That's what I imagine buying a home would be like, not this canned perfect scenario that they've portrayed. Like, I need to go call that person because they put it out there real,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
And you've
absolutely.
connected with people to tell them, like, I'm with you, I know what it is.
I saw this great thing on LinkedIn today. I just died laughing because at first glance it said, uh, "We helped this home buyer in just 856 days," and I was like, "What?" And then I read it, and he or she had been trying to get off of her ex-husband's mortgage for all of this time, for over 2 years, but they kept in contact with her, and I thought it was such a brilliant marketing piece for today, because I was like, "Well, there's something you don't see every day," but it's true.
It's
Sometimes
the
the
truth.
journey you are on with a person is years. And if we're willing to lean into those relationships always, and continue to provide some sort of reassurance, or just counsel, that they know that they can come to you while they're on this path. There is no, maybe there's still unicorn loans, I don't know where they are, but for the most part every deal is going to be pretty complicated for the time being, because we're trying to make something that is so expensive right now be really affordable and be really realistic for people.
I think that speaks volumes, the scenario you just talked about, because people, I think more or less, that is a great sales thing, that when you see that, to say, man, I could call that person if I'm not exactly ready today, but they're going to be there for me when
Yeah.
I am ready. It speaks to the person or the consumer on a different level than, like we said, like, hey, look, I closed this loan. And to me, I tell people, like, when you market like, hey, I closed it, I mean, isn't that your job? If you are marketing that you closed a home or closed a house with a client, everybody just thinks you showed up and did your job. You're not showing like how you got it out the mud, the difficulty, like how you got dirty, right,
Right.
to get to that point. And I think that that is the beauty in what we do. It's those stories, that connectivity, that will make people want to come to us for mortgages. Not the pretty packaged in a bow, because anybody could do the pretty packaged in a bow. The unicorn, like you said, the slam dunk deal, that's you doing your job. The
Right.
stories are what's going to be
100%.
connected. Yeah, I think that's amazing.
I so agree. I so love the idea of that vulnerability. Not a lot of people are willing to lean in to that vulnerability. And I'm not sure why, because, well, I'll tell you this. I'll say this about it. You mentioned women buyers. I'm a little bit crazy when it comes to this topic, because the single female ownership of homes has only been growing in recent years. And I was one of the very first people to go, we need a women only buying marketing campaign, because if
Yes.
I'm a single woman and you send me an email and my husband, quote unquote husband, is in a picture, and you are so tone deaf to the fact that I don't need that. You're not sending me something about me. You're sending me something super, super canned, and it shows me that you're not listening. And while that might seem insignificant to some people, it's not insignificant to a woman who has built her career, built her job, and is buying her home by herself. Don't send me some marketing. Don't ask me who who, hey, can I have, who else should I CC on this? Think about the stuff you say before you say it. But just seeing that reflection and just understanding, the place that someone's coming from, and being vulnerable in that place and sharing the story of, hey, listen, I bought my first house by myself too. That to me is significant.
Everybody has a
I mean,
story, and that's what, if they see themselves in your marketing, they're going to buy your product. And like I said, mortgage and real estate just haven't been as tied into that as retail has with trying to connect. I've had it happen to me where I think someone tried to sell me like a cell phone or something, and they're like, "Oh, I can give you some stuff to take home to your husband," and I'm like,
mhm.
just, I mean, think about it. Even those who are married, if you're the woman, a lot of times you might be handling the paperwork, or you're the one out seeking what's going on. My husband was in the military. He's going to have to travel and go TDY. I got to do the house picking. I had to turn in the paperwork and get
Right.
everything done. And you didn't even give me any attention because you just felt that there'd be someone else there that was going to handle it. So there's a lot of women involved in the transaction, even if they're married, that aren't being seen,
For sure.
you know? But if they were
Yeah,
seen,
I totally
they
agree.
jump all over it.
I I would 100% agree, and I think that, I mean, I'll get in trouble, but I don't care. As you know, I don't care, Mo. I Look, we're women in this industry, so we know the path we blaze to get where we are. But what's so fascinating to me is where I have been howling in the wind about relationships for over a decade now. It seems like the industry's come around to this concept that we are not going to be able to do things if we don't have personal relationships with people. And in my opinion, women are very solid at relationships, creating them, listening, leaning in. It's kind of our strong suit. And this
Yes.
to me seems like sort of the era of the woman producer. How do you feel about that?
It's a great time to be a woman producer because innately we have some of these qualities that allow us to connect differently, and
Right.
more authentically. Yes, I said it. Like you said, if we're going to say things
Yeah,
that get us in.
yeah,
I'm also,
always.
I feel that I totally know, um, I know my strong points and I know where maybe I'm not as strong, and I'm willing to leverage personal relationships to be able to um, have what I need. I think leveraging other people's lived experience in my business. I don't have certain lived experience. I do bring some lived experiences that are different, but I'm willing to surround myself with my team and my staff that balance that out. And doing so, we are more connective. I have people on my team that are, ooh, a little under half of my age, believe it or not. I have children the
Hmm.
age of some of the people on my team, and it was me not looking to be short-sighted in the fact that they didn't have the experience, because if they came on and they were with me long enough, they could learn everything I know, but they're going to be able to connect with a demographic differently. Because again, I'm a mother of five. I'm giving mom vibes all day long, right? Um, in my career, but maybe they want to talk to somebody that might be in a similar place to them. So it's definitely in marketing and in connection and being able to recognize that part as well, that I think is going to be the new superhero talent as a producer going forward. And us women know how to leverage that and offload the things we're not great at, or bring in other help, and not have to be drugged to that reality. And we can do it in advance to connect with who the home buyer is going forward and what they want to be entertained with or edutained with, right? Um, our consumers are different now. They're different, right? They're on YouTube. They've already studied the subject of home buying. They're just interviewing to find out who could hit on what their expectations are. So now we have to connect with people based on their expectations of how they consume content, what they like to consume, all those things. So it's different than it was, like you said, even 5 years ago, about how we're going to get these consumers going forward. And you're right, connecting with people. Consumer is now part of that. It's not just as a producer entertaining agents as they have changes in their industry. You really have to tap in
Abs-
all of the market segments, right? Business to consumer, and be able to master what that connectivity looks like. Because connecting with consumers and understanding that psychology of the home buyer is going to be different than mastering that psychology of the realtor as they're going through their changes now too.
it's you make such great points, and what I love is, we have evolved from reading books about mastering the sale, right? Like, how am I going to do this sales job? And the reality is, your consumers and your referral partners, what they're looking for is commonality between you and comfortability. And I just gave a presentation in Utah where I was talking to loan officers about the concept of we, meaning that it's a package deal a lot of the times, right? If you got a referral from an agent, that agent really believes that you are going to represent their brand well and that you're going to take care of these human beings well. And that is so relational. And the way that we approach, I would assume, I'm making some generalities here, but if we look at all of our future transactions, whether you're direct to consumer, whether this came from your database, whether this is a referral, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, does this person trust you? And do they feel really comfortable talking to you about stuff that's really uncomfortable? And you probably see that every single day.
It's true. They just want the connectivity, the commonality, that common bond, that thread that links you to them as a human being. And
Yeah,
making sure that you have that is important. I've seen a lot of real estate agents as well change the way they do business. They realize to be that, they might need to have multiple lending partners. They're not just going to
right.
necessarily have one. They're going to look for the people that they can kind of bounce between to meet the needs of the client when they find that common thread as well. So it's huge. Like I said, your village and in your squad that you roll with, whether it be your team that's doing loans, your staff, whoever does your marketing, having a wider net when it comes to connectivity to different people, not just the
Right.
same or having the canned thought of who someone needs to be. We all have to think a little bit bigger right now.
Mo, I could talk to you for the next 6 hours easily, because this 30 minutes has just flown by. And I just want to thank you so much today for, I mean, we didn't even tap into the amazing things you've done for underserved communities. You're such a breath of fresh air for me personally, but also just you're doing such amazing things. And I'm grateful for your time and your leadership. And I'm really glad to know you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And it was great being introduced to you by a common person in the industry so we can have these conversations going forward.
It's awesome. All right. Anyways, everybody connect with Mo on LinkedIn. Check out what she does that makes her so different. Mo, thank you once again for being on the podcast today.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Bye. Sure. We did it.